Welcome to One on One, the Daily Items weekly digital program featuring Susquehanna Valley newsmakers interviewed by Daily Item reporters. Today's guest is new Bucknell University Athletic Director Jermaine Truax, interviewed by editor Dennis Lyons.
It's cloaked in stunning designer attire, a statement of fashion from every angle, unashamed of its opulence, but nothing you didn't already expect from Lincoln.
Unveil innovation with purpose. The all-new 2018 Lincoln MKZ. Or blur the lines between comfort and exhilaration. The 2018 Lincoln MKX. The feeling stays with you.
Sunbury Motors Lincoln, run by the Mertz family since 1915.
Hello and welcome to One on One, the Daily Items weekly video interview program where we talk to newsmakers from the Susquehanna Valley. And we're very happy today to have as our guest Jermaine Truax, who started in July as the new athletic director at Bucknell University. Welcome, Jermaine.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I'm going to talk mostly about Bucknell, I promise, but I got to ask you, you were at Loyola Chicago during that amazing run in basketball last year as the deputy director of athletics, and that experience must have been amazing. And you got to tell me your best Sister Jean story.
Well, it was phenomenal, and not only for what it did for the institution, but the way the nation responded to us, the way the city responded to us, really phenomenal. And for the institution to really understand the value that athletics can bring, very, very special. Like Sister Jean, very, very special. And of course, she just turned 99, I think. Wow. 3 or 4 weeks ago, so 98 during the run. And you know what I tell people is my understanding is she is not in the wheelchair because she is 99 years old. She is in a wheelchair because she broke her hip getting into an Uber. And so if you can imagine a 98-year-old woman getting into an Uber in Chicago, and that's how she got in the wheelchair. But my entire time there, she'd walk around campus. She's so great, not only for the student athletes and the men's basketball specifically, but certainly the rest of campus. She has her own Sister Jean room right in the student center, the Damon Student Center, and the students talk to her all the time. Just a phenomenal woman. And I saw she met Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, a few weeks ago, maybe more now, but she's become internationally known.
That was actually him meeting her.
Exactly. She's now internationally known, but well-deserved and special woman.
Okay, well, some people probably already know this, but for those few that might not, let's talk about your background just a little bit. You played football at Edinburgh University, and you were a defensive back?
I was, and so I played football, basketball at high school. I tell people I chose football because I'm 5'10", and so I was a cornerback. Played at Edinburgh. Very, very successful. Head coach was Lou Tepper. We were top 15 my time there. 3 straight conference championships, playoffs. I was a team captain. So I had a great experience as a student athlete. From Edinburgh, I actually went to Arena Football League and spent a season in San Jose.
Okay.
And spent a season there. And this was really when...
Did you ever think of playing?
I thought about it. I was a little injury prone. I mean, again, I had a successful career, but it's particularly when I got there and I was watching them, and I thought to myself, I can play with these guys. I can guard these receivers. Now, I could have been a bit delusional, but you have to have that confidence as a quarterback, as a corner, to be able to guard receivers and cover receivers. So I was tempted a little bit, but I knew my path of wanting to be in college administration. So went San Jose doing player personnel. So the scouting and operations, and really parlayed that experience to a summer camp with the Buffalo Bills. And so spent doing very, very similar things. So, and that was just summer, so a couple of months, short stint. But to see it from a college perspective and a professional perspective, really invaluable for me. So I went from, after Buffalo Bills, I went back to grad school in Slippery Rock, and then St. Bonaventure was my first Division I college job, and then I went Bowling Green to Loyola Chicago, and now obviously here.
Somewhere in there you did do a little college football coaching, right?
I did do coaching, and that was when I went to St. Bonaventure. St. Bonaventure didn't have football in the A-10, and some of them do in that league, but they didn't. And I was able to go to Alfred State and coach defensive backs for my time at St. Bonaventure. So a few years there and got that coaching experience as well. So I tell people kind of that well-rounded, more you can do. So a former student athlete, was in professional sports, college athletics, also coached it a bit, and pursuing my doctorate as well. So that's important because obviously education is.
And your doctorate in?
All but dissertation, leadership studies.
Okay.
Now I'm going to have a hard time figuring out how to finish that.
So we're all going to
now.
have to call you Dr. Truax now?
If I can finish it, given the time demands of being an athletic director, but I've come so far, so I have to figure that out.
Okay, well, now let's fast forward. You came to Bucknell in July. Tell me a little bit about what attracted you to Bucknell.
Really, one thing keeps coming to mind, particularly because I just heard it again this weekend where we inducted Hall of Famers. The primary thing was the combination of elite academics and Division I athletics, so doing it at the highest level for both was very, very attractive for me. And we inducted 6 members of our Hall of Fame Friday night, and that was one of the recurring themes throughout their speeches of how much it did for them to have that opportunity at a great education, so that elite academics, and then that opportunity to compete Division I and do both. And it's not easy, and what you get from that and the value out of that really positions young men and women to be great beyond the classroom, beyond campus, and prepares them for life beyond sports and university. So very, very good.
You've got a lot of, you have 27 varsity sports there, right? And I guess something like 40 intramural sports, so that's an awful lot.
It is a big shop, and 27 sports and 750 plus student athletes and intramural club sports. And so athletics alone is over 20% of the student population, so enrollment with a 3,600 enrollment. And so when you add in the club and intramural sports, it's probably somewhere around the 30%-ish, or maybe a little more. Not sure the exact number on that piece, but it's a big shop and a big part of what Bucknell is, and so it's good, and it's kept me busy, certainly.
I'm sure it has. We have quite a good number of impressive facilities on campus there too, and most recently the new the Graham Wrestling Center. And you've got a big wrestling match coming up the end of November, is that right?
We do. We have Penn State coming into town, and actually Bill Graham was one of our Hall of Fame inductors. He's a major benefactor to the university, but his generous support allowed for the wrestling center, and really it is phenomenal, probably one of the best in the country. But we do have a tough match coming up against Penn State, and they're really good and defending national champions, and it'll be good for us. And to see Soika full, we're getting close to that, and I don't have any doubt that it'll be a sellout. Just the experience for our student athletes, and kudos to them and their coach over there for coming to our facility. Obviously, they're within an hour away, and so that's not always easy to do across sports,
Sure.
Particularly for a program as successful as they've been. And so obviously we're appreciative of that, and we're going to go to win. That's what we do. So
now I've run into you a number of times at Bucknell football games, which I do tend to go to most home games, but I understand you're really trying to get out and be at virtually all the fall sports and then moving forward into the other seasons.
Yeah, being visible is an important thing for me. Ultimately, we're here for our student athletes, and so it is important that not only to our competitions but also to practices I try to get to. Obviously, there's so many of those you can't get to all of them, like the games, but I'm at every football game. I've dabbled in every single sport since I've been here, and I will continue to do so. This really doesn't have anything to do with me just being here. That's just how I operate, and I want to see our student athletes perform in their different competitive arenas, and I know it's important to them, and it's important to me. So ultimately, we're here for them.
I must admit, I do see you inside the ropes sometimes on the football sidelines. I got to wonder what you're thinking. Are you still the player who wishes he was still out there?
Well, probably not, because I'm sure I'll get injured, as you get a little older, those Achilles injuries and those types of things. But, I'm still competitive, and so you think you can still do things that you can't. But, yeah, I'll leave it to the 18 to 22-year-olds who are far better than I am. But, yes, I do have some flashbacks sometimes of wishing I was still out there, because those are the best moments, and those are where all the memories are made. And obviously I enjoy what I do now professionally, but those 4 or 5 years, those you're not going to get those back. And so particularly for a sport like football where you play so few number of contests, you really try to maximize each one and have a great time while you're out there. So, but no, I'll leave it to them. Certainly.
Okay, well, we're talking to Jermaine Truax, the new athletic director at Bucknell University. You're watching One on One, and we'll be back with more after this.
It's cloaked in stunning designer attire, a statement of fashion from every angle, unashamed of its opulence, but nothing you didn't already expect from Lincoln.
Unveil innovation with purpose. The all-new 2018 Lincoln MKZ. Or blur the lines between comfort and exhilaration. The 2018 Lincoln MKX. The feeling stays with you.
Sunbury Motors Lincoln, run by the Mertz family since 1915.
We're back on One. I'm Dennis Lyons, the editor of the Daily Item, and my guest today is Jermaine Truax, the new athletic director at Bucknell University. And we've been talking a little bit about what's going on now at Bucknell. Let's talk a little bit about the future. I know obviously you're still finding out where all the keys fit in the doors and
Sure.
and whatnot. But you've been around now a few months. What are you seeing? And is there a vision, short term, at least for you, and then maybe a longer term vision moving forward?
Yeah, I would say more big term, which is for me, is to position us to be the preeminent program in the Patriot League with a strategic focus on winning in the classroom, winning in the community, and winning in our competitive arenas. I'm competitive. I want to win in all of those areas. I don't think you have to sacrifice any one of those. And the great thing is we've done that historically. So it's, for me, how do we take it to the next level?
And what is the next level?
And well, there's a lot to that. And so we've measured ourselves by the Patriot Cup, the President's Cups within the Patriot Leagues.
Which
where
you've won quite a bit.
We've won more than anyone in history. And so, but we haven't in the last couple years. So can we find a way to, would I say, reclaim our spot atop the league? You think about the success we've had in, say, a basketball, particularly on the men's side, as of really historically. Women, as of late, have been very, very successful. And so, we've gotten to the tournament on the basketball side, but how can we be one of the best mid-major programs in all of Division I? So thinking differently about those things. Obviously, I can go right down the list. There's many of them, but men's lacrosse, very, very successful. Just our women's field hockey, Jeremy Cook, he just won his 100th game, and they've just made the playoffs for the 11th consecutive year, and women's soccer. And so again, we have so many competitive programs, putting it all together again to reclaim our spot atop of the league. But then some of those programs, how do we become one of the best Division I mid-major programs, if you will? And so that'll take some time to figure it out. What I've been doing is really just listening more than anything. And so I've sat down with every head coach and senior staff member, just trying to get a feel of the programs, what's working well, what's not, how do we take it to the next level. Obviously, I won't be able to do it by myself, but we have a tremendous group of head coaches across the board, talented administrators, and so I feel very good about where we're positioned and how we can certainly take it to the next level, because we certainly have that opportunity to do so.
It's got to be a challenge recruiting student athletes at a place like Bucknell, because the academic standards are so high, and yet you do, as you say, you're competitive and you do want to win. You probably experienced that at Loyola Chicago as well. How much of a challenge is that?
Yeah, I'm learning it. I think Loyola Chicago a little different than here. And when I think about our academic bandwidth, we're very, very similar to the rest of the Patriot League, and a lot of the way I think is how are we stacking up within our league. And so we're similar, whereas you think about a Loyola Chicago and some of the other institutions that are in there, they may not look similar academically, whereas in this league, we're all in that same kind of competitive balance. And so it starts with winning the league, right? And then you think more broadly about what you can do across the Division I landscape. And so, but we wouldn't want it any other way. This is the true scholar-athlete model. That's what this is, in my view, what Division I athletics is all about. And really, we talk about that, we celebrate it, and you have to be able to do both here, and that's how we want it. And again, I go back to our Hall of Famers talking about it. It's just not easy, right? And, but we don't want it to be, and we know that once you're done here, those are the types of things, that combination will prepare you for years to come.
Yeah, we've obviously had a lot of success here. prior to you getting here, they've got there's at least two players playing in the NFL right now from the football program. There's one who's unfortunately injured playing in the NBA with the 76ers. But obviously that's not what this is all about. As you said, you've got an awful lot of kids here who are just going to play sports in college and have a great experience doing that. So that's really, although you want to win on the big level and the big games and all that, that's really kind of the focus, isn't it?
It is, and I mean, on some level, that statement is true across Division I and really all of college athletics. We know that the very few student athletes are going to go pro in their sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you hear it all the time. You're going to go pro in something outside of your sport, and that's no different here, right? And so that's where the academics are so important to what we do, really across the country, but here as well. And so, but we still want to compete, right?
Sure.
And so that's where I went, and I talked about a little earlier of you don't have to sacrifice both. You can be, or either. I mean, you can be great at both. And again, you've just mentioned some of the highlights who have gone to professional sports, but that's not the end-all, be-all for us. We know that. We're going to get good jobs in something outside of our sport, and we've done a pretty good job with that. In fact, a great job.
I know you've met a lot of members of the Gridiron Club and other alums. What are you hearing from them? What are they hoping for you? What are they looking for you to do?
Well, what I love is they're so passionate and they're so excited that I'm here, and so that's good. Everybody's been so welcoming, and so as I've said, I'm just trying to get people into the fold. It takes a village, right? And so as we look across all of our 27 sports, how do we do it together? And it's just not coaches, it's not just our student athletes or staff. It takes alum, it takes support, and not always just financial support, but also just being there, being visible. How can you help? And so trying to find ways to connect our alums back to our programs to get that support. Certainly the financial pieces help, and they've been tremendous as far as that goes as well. But I'm looking more for, again, just being involved and engaged. And so that has been one of my things, and they have welcomed that. And so I would try to do that moving forward, because it's just so important to what we do. But I'd rather have them passionate like they are than apathetic, and so
Sure.
They have been, and they reach out to me, and I engage with them, whether it's in person, through email, on the phone, Twitter, whatever it may be. I try to be responsive, and it's been great.
What about the students? Have you gotten a chance to talk to non-athlete students on campus and get a sense of what they're all about and their interest in the sports programs?
Not as much yet. Certainly if they come to, say, our tailgates at football, I try to get out and walk around and say hello to them, thanking them for coming, appreciate the support. But I haven't had a chance to just walk around and get a sense of our students. Probably at some point I will.
You will
do
the
that.
basketball games.
Oh yes. So I'm looking forward to that. Everybody tells me wait to basketball season, and so no,
it can
I'm
be
excited.
crazy at Psycha. There's no question about it. But it's a good atmosphere, and they do for the most part. Maybe not an early season game against a non-league opponent, but they'll when the games are counting.
Right,
there, you'll see them out there.
But they're so important to what we do, and we want them to come to all of our sports. Ultimately, I say the students drive the energy, whether it's football, soccer, basketball, and so they're so important to it. And so, in such an intimate campus, we want athletics to be one of those things that unites campus, and students are such a big part of that. So I will get out and kind of figure out what attracts them to our different contests and games, because we want them there. But we also want to get out and support some of their initiatives as well from an athletic perspective. So it's a two-way street, but our students are so important to what we do, and so trying to hear their stories and kind of what attracts them is on the agenda as well.
Good. Well, as someone who's moved around a lot, I've been involved in an awful lot of different newspapers. I know what that's like. I had 4 kids, and you've moved here with a wife and 3 children.
3 children.
How's that going?
So far, so good. I have 2 girls and a young son, so 16, 5, and a 15-month-old son. My kindergartner has adjusted well. She probably doesn't know any different.
Sure.
When we were moving here from Chicago to here. We told her going to kindergarten, so in part she probably thinks this is just kindergarten.
Right.
And then a 16-year-old, very, very resilient. She's bounced around, such is the life when you work in athletics.
That
for
can be
many of
tough.
us, it can be.
I moved his son for his senior year of high school, and I didn't think he was ever going to forgive me, actually. But having this family support is important. And
it is. What's nice now, though, is when I was growing up, it was pen pals to try to stay connected to your friends or whomever. And now, with FaceTime and the technology, social media, my daughter's still friends with some of her friends who she had at Bowling Green, and so it's not being there physically, but the connectivity is just so different than what it used to be. It helps. Still not ideal, certainly. It's hard to move, particularly at that age, but the technology has helped with some of that.
Well, again, as someone who's moved around quite a bit, I generally come to town with a few early goals. Do you have some early goals that you're trying to focus on right now?
No, I actually don't. I take a different approach just because I've bounced around a little bit. I've talked holistically, like I mentioned earlier, about the vision and how to get there. That roadmap will come through a strategic plan. Mm-hmm. I've been listening more than anything. I don't believe in a cookie cutter approach. I don't believe that what worked at Bowling Green will work here, or what worked at Loyola Chicago would work at a St. Bonaventure. I just think, yes, there are some things that are consistent across how we operate within Division I, but each place has its own people, its own cultures, its own rhythm. And so I've been just trying to understand that cadence before I walk in and say, okay, here's my goal, here's my objective. This is really about serving our student athletes and our coaches at a high level and giving them the support they need so that they can be successful. Well, 4 months in, I don't know what that is. And so it's really just trying to understand that before you start making decisions about how to move forward.
Okay, well, Jermaine Truax, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
We wish you all the luck.
Appreciate it.
And you've been watching One on One. Hope you'll join us again next Thursday for another edition.
Thanks for watching One on One. Be sure to tune in next Thursday at dailyitem.com for a new edition.